From Los Angeles and Nashville, get ready to go behind the scenes with Entertainment Dudes. What happens when you pair a director, a voice actor in a world, and some of the most interesting people in entertainment? You're about to find out. Let's get ready to rumble!
I never know what the intro is going to be like. That's exciting.
I have no idea. Just
you just bring it in and blow our minds. That's all right. I know is that my mind is going to be blown every single time. Those sound effects are actually Cam for those of you who can't. I know you're probably shocked right now, but we are excited today again to have another incredible guest on the show. And today, is that a dog?
Yes. Sorry.
Did you print that on your 3D printer?
I did not print that.
Are you sure?
See, what
have you printed today? What new printing have we? You printed Bugs Bunny. Dude, that actually looks really good. How much was that 3D printer?
I got it at discount. It was like about $180.
Geesh. $180. That's I mean the Bugs Bunny's $180 or the printer?
Oh no, the printer.
Anyway, stop interrupting me.
Anyway,
I literally want to do this incredible show. We have an awesome guest here today.
I know,
and he's a director, producer extraordinaire. The dude actually taught me a lot about what I know about editing today. Like he understands story, concepts. If you want to understand the idea of putting together a story, how do you shoot interviews and actually make a story out of just, you get so much material, it gets dumped in a bin and it's like, here, make a story out of it.
How do you
This guy's a genius at doing it, absolute genius. So we're really excited today to bring on Greg Travis from Travis Television in Nashville, Tennessee. Yes.
Hey, guys.
Our crowd is going wild. Yay. So happy. Great he's here.
Anyway, before we actually start, I got to tell everybody to, if you're on YouTube, to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Yes,
Yes, that's right. And you're not wearing merch today, are you, Jason?
I am.
You are. Okay.
If you want to, if you want to check out some of our merch, this is our Entertainment Dudes shirt. I might even stand up for this one because this is actually.
You guys didn't send me merch, or I would have been displaying something.
Hey, that's a great idea. We ought to send our people merch.
Merch.entertainmentdudes.com.
Always send merch to the guests, or at least a big sign that you can put on the wall.
This is actually a great idea. Thank you. See, another reason we always learn something new on the show, and we're going to apply this.
Merch to guests.
I'm glad I could be of help.
Well, thanks. That was great. It was great having Greg on the show today.
Thank you. Bye.
So, Greg, if you could just tell us a little bit about exactly kind of who you are and what you do and what you have done, and then a little bit how you got started, because I think it's pretty spectacular. So take it away.
Well, thanks, Jason. Yeah, and I was happy when you asked me to do this, because I swear, Kim, anytime I got to hang out with Jason was like priceless. We used to hire him as an editor, but we hired him because he would make us laugh all the time. And
he sucked at editing, but he was fun.
He was a terrible editor, but man, was he funny. I'm just kidding.
There you go, guys. That's all it takes. Just entertain the people you work with, and you can get a job.
In the business, just be funny like Jason, and you'll get tons of jobs.
Like, he's really not very good. Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. He's fun.
He's so funny.
Yeah, it's going to take us twice as long.
Did he get that edit finished? No, but I heard a great new joke.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, and you guys, I love this podcast. You guys are doing a great job. Cam, I love your voiceovers.
Thank you.
It's so fun to listen to those. I'm amazed by people who could do that with their voices. And then you watch like the cartoons or the commercials or whatever, and it's like, wow, that's a real person doing that. It doesn't even seem like it should be, so.
Yeah, I like those behind the scenes looks when they're, you'll see their action. It's almost like it's like on stage. They're bigger than life. Oh no, you're kidding me. And then you'll watch the video. And if you're like, if anyone acted like that in front of the camera, no, stop.
But it makes a difference, because when you're behind the microphone, people don't have that visual cue. And so everything you do, those motions actually make their way into the voice.
And a lot of actors who started out on camera, they'll go in and act, but their emotions aren't big enough. They don't come through the microphone. So it's a whole different beast. So.
It's always fascinating for me to see those behind the scenes clips where you see the actual, animation, and then you see the person in the voiceover booth, and, they're animated, and it's really fascinating what you do, I think. So.
Yeah, those VO guys are even sometimes larger than life than the cartoon, which I'm like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, exactly. Like my friend Eric Stewart, we were talking about, he's like voice of some of the Pokemon characters.
Pokemon, yeah. And
he's like a rock star. He goes to conventions and signs, autographs, and has a huge following, worldwide. It's pretty wild. What a celebrity he's become just from that voiceover, So.
Yeah, that's great. Who we had on the show, voiceover dude who does like all the trailers and the hilarious trailers.
Oh, John Bailey.
Yeah, John Bailey.
John
he
Bailey,
was a riot. And he does Ryan Reynolds' voice pretty well. And he does like that Mint commercial with him and stuff. And having him on, that was a blast. If you missed that episode, it's hilarious because he just does thousands of voices in one episode. It's like we had 1,000 guests on that episode. So
if you've ever seen Honest Trailers, he's the voice behind Honest Trailers. So.
Yeah, it's great. So we have a lot of fun.
I don't do any voices, so sorry to disappoint you.
No, I love this voice. It's very calm and soothing. It's like if I want to go to sleep at night, I would listen to you repeatedly and be like, it's so soothing.
I can only do one impersonation. It's like, I'm telling you, American people, I did not have sex with that woman.
That was good.
Yes.
That was good. That's like Bill Clinton establishing his library day. Like, who is it? That's great. Okay, so you've done a lot of work with entertainment. You've done a lot with CMT, GAC. You've worked really heavy in country music, EPKs, all kinds of stuff. Where did you get your start? Like, how did you even get into that? You obviously went to college, got your master's, doctorate, all that.
Yeah, not really. I went to college, but I got interested like right as I was in college was 1980, 81, and 82. And that was when MTV launched. So all the bands that were like around me were like, oh, we need to do videos. We need to do like, we need to create films, little music films or whatever. So I wound up going to a pawn shop and buying a little Super 8 handheld camera. It didn't even record sound.
Are you serious? Was that the one that has it in the handle? It's like, there's like almost like a trigger.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I around the college area at the University of Tennessee is where I went. I started shooting bands, like a few little music video clips and stuff. And so it just got me really interested in in doing things. And then a friend of mine got a video camera, and it was back when they were huge shoulder things, and this was the home video camera. This wasn't professional. And he was the only person I knew that had a video camera. And it was 1982, and we were at the World's Fair. We were working there, and we just took the camera out and started going around interviewing people and talking to them. And it just kind of gave me that bug, I was like, wow, this is fun. We'd go back and watch, and laugh at some of the clips, and we didn't do anything with it, but it was just like we were creating our own videos. So that's kind of what gave me the bug. So I finished college there as a sort of psychology major, which I guess later came in handy.
Yeah, of course.
But I went to New York City. I went to quite a few schools and seminars and things. The Center for Media Arts was one of those in New York City, and we got to do a lot of work with CBS and some soap operas and things like that, So I had an internship that I sort of did for just a brief period at Entertainment Tonight in New York, and that was kind of ironic because I wound up later working for them for over 25 years. So anyway, so I came out of school. I couldn't get jobs in New York because it's tough, in New York City if you don't have experience. Mm-hmm. So I wound up going back to Nashville, and that's when I worked for a production company for a little while, and I was kind of fortunate. That production company, I had no idea what I was doing. And we got hired to go do like a PGA golf tournament in Cherry Hills in Denver for ABC Sports. And I'm shooting for ABC Sports, and I've never shot golf in my entire life. I have no idea how to follow
Well, at least the target is fairly large.
Yeah.
anything, you know. It was just-
Follow the ball, follow the ball. Right? And the camera's like,
like, where did he go? I can't see the ball.
I think those guys are the most talented guys in all of film.
yeah.
The two people, the people who follow the hockey puck at a hockey game, and the people who follow the golf ball. How?
And somehow this production company, we kept getting hired. We got hired for like gymnastics championships in Montreal. We got hired to do indie. Like we would set up and do foreign broadcast feeds where we would take ABC's clean video feed and we would put foreign announcers in different like little vocal booths, and we
Live?
would mix live during the race, and we would mix and send out satellite to like Japan or to like Brazil and to different places. And we didn't understand a word they were saying. Like we had,
They could have been completely making a bunch of BS.
they could have been talking about whatever, you know. And anyway, it was a strange sort of way to get started in the business. But that was pretty amazing. That production company got into a lot of stuff with ABC Sports. So that sort of showed me the bigger world of TV, I guess. And then I met the guy who was producing Entertainment Tonight stories out of Nashville. His name was Dick Hurd, and this was around the late 80s, I guess. And it was right as the country music world was about to explode. Like Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, Clint Black, you know, like just Brooks and Dunn, you know, it was like tons and tons of big artists all launched right around that early 88, 89, 90 period. So Billy Ray Cyrus, you know, Travis, it was just like a ton of country acts that sort of came out. So that was kind of right time, right place. And I was doing camera work and I was doing some editing for a production company. And so I started doing shoots. I wound up just filling in freelance for Entertainment Tonight stories. And so I'd gone out for a few stories. They would send us to cover movies, and I remember being on the set of one of those Ernest movies. You remember? Jim Varney
Ernest P. Worrell, Electro Man.
So the first shoot I was ever on for ET, we were in a courtroom scene, and it was totally quiet. And I'm the audio guy, okay? And I've got headphones on, and it was one of those old tape decks, and it's connected with an umbilical cord to the camera, and the guy's shooting, and all of a sudden the tape gets near the end, and those machines would beep like beep, beep, really loud. And so in the middle of the scene, it's like on a movie set. I'm sitting there and the beep starts happening and everybody in the whole place like turns and looks at me. I was like, okay, well, this has been fun. I'm done with this. I'm going to be fired. You know? So, anyway.
Gosh. Well, now it's cell phones they have to worry about, and everyone's got one. So
exactly. But
turn off your cell phone on set, or else you get fined. You could lose your job.
This was like early, like 90s, I guess. Equipment was so primitive. It seems to today's standards and everything. But anyway, so I was a cameraman then for like a year or so for ET, and then we got sent. Whitney Houston was like the biggest star in the world at that time, and we got sent to Knoxville, University of Tennessee, to their arena to set up like her big comeback tour. She had the Bodyguard movie, I Will Always Love You. You know, it was massive. It was like the biggest hit in the world.
Cam, take it away.
Yeah, Cam, go ahead.
No, not right now.
He does an amazing Whitney Houston. You cannot tell the difference.
I'm not the star of this show.
Later. We'll do it later.
I was hoping Jason might sing. I actually felt like Jason, when he moved to Los Angeles, was going there, and next thing we would see him at the Comedy Store doing stand-up. You know?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that isn't.
But anyway, so I went to set up this interview as a cameraman for this Whitney Houston story, and we were set up, and we had the producer and talent flying in from Los Angeles, and I get a call backstage, which is on those old payphones backstage at that time, and Whitney's publicist came in and she said, Clay from ET's on the line, and he wants to speak with you. And I got on the phone, and they said, the producer and talent are not going to make it. You're going to have to do the interview with Whitney. And at this time, I had never in my life interviewed anybody on camera.
My
I'd only been around a few celebrity interviews in general. So I'm like, okay, sure, like, so I get a piece of paper and he gives me, quite a few questions. So I write them down and I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a disaster, but so Whitney's publicist at least knows, that I've never interviewed anybody. So it was just a funny, kind of story. So I had to go in and sit down with her. And when she walked in the room, she had this like coat, like a full length mink white coat. And she like takes it off and just drops it to the floor. And it's like a sheer bodysuit. I'm talking like things barely covering,
Did she walk in slow motion?
And
slow mo.
My reaction was in slow mo. Like, whoa.
And he started doing,
Yes. So, and then she laughed, like she did that almost to intimidate me or so. It was so
You're
funny.
like, it worked. I am very intimidated right now.
Yeah. So,
among other things that I really don't want to talk about.
That's a whole other podcast. But anyway, so we sat down and like the wild thing was I sat down and I just walked on the stage because I was so nervous. I saw some of the opening act and I came back, just to sort of calm my nerves. And so I sat down with her and like, I had all these questions and I thought, well, I'll just sit and read them off the paper, and get it over with sitting next to the camera, like we do with off-camera interviews if you're not an on-camera talent person. And so I didn't even ask her, like, my sound guy was manning the camera since I couldn't shoot it. And so he just whispered in my ear, said, we're rolling. And I didn't even think I heard him because I just looked at her and I said, God, I just walked out on that stage and I was scared to death. Like, this place is sold out. It's, I don't know how you do it. What's going through your mind? And I was just asking that. That wasn't one of my questions for her, really.
Right.
It was just making conversation, and because I was curious, and she started to answer, and it just went into a flow of conversation, and we just started talking. And like and I knew some of the topics, in my head, but I never even looked at the piece of paper.
Amazing.
And so Clay, our music producer at ET in LA, she knew him well. And she said at the end of the interview, and like 25 minutes went by and we were supposed to do 20. And the publicist finally stepped in. She goes, God, I got to get her to the stage. But she said, this is awesome. This is one of the best interviews she's done.
Dude, that's amazing. Oh, thank you. I do this all the time.
And so Whitney, I know. So Whitney looks in the camera and she said, Clay, if you need to send him out more than those people you have in Hollywood, because he's better at this than they are.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I was like, yeah. Okay, thank you. And that was how I started like doing like interviews.
What a plug. That's
cool.
Amazing.
And, yeah. And so they sort of trusted me to do some stories after that. And so I got put into some crazy situations. But I think the lesson in that is just being at the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And, like learning the business. I learned how to do sound, with the equipment, then on sets for our shoots. I learned how to shoot, and then I studied what the interviewer was doing. And so when I was thrown into that role, I kind of knew what to do, but, it was still scary as hell. but it worked. I mean, we had this great interview. I still have the story,
That's incredible.
And it was really fun. And then, so they started sending me out on more stories. And I mean, people like Billy Joel, and, I got sent in the studio with him, and I was in the day the divorce was filed from Christine Brinkley.
Yeah.
We were in a studio with him, and my phone started going off like crazy. It was one of those big brick phones back then. And
two hands, right?
And they're begging me to ask him about the divorce. And his publicist is like, if you ask him, he's just going to turn and walk on you. And it's like, oh my God. And they're like, if you don't ask, you're fired. And it's like,
so what'd you decide? What'd you end up doing?
Situation. So it was interesting because I didn't really, I just sort of, the publicist said, if I were you, she said, if you're going to ask anything, she said, save it for the last question. And she said, don't make it too blatant or whatever, and I just said, okay. And I didn't even know what I was going to do. We just started the interview. He was doing a tribute album in Nashville, RCA Studio B. And we were, and so I started asking him about the album and making music. And we got to the end and he said, is there anything else? And I said, yeah, I just have one question. Like, I don't want to ask you about your personal life because I know you don't want to talk about it. But I said, I'm just curious, like you're here making this great music and outside these walls, like the whole media world is buzzing and, talking about you and your personal life. How do you stay focused and,
good question.
Create music at this point during this? And he just looked at me like,
that's actually a good question.
And so he started answering and he started saying, he goes, well, he goes, it's good I have music at this time. When things in life go bad or when things are not going well, I can go in the studio, I can focus on my craft, I can make music. And I'm lucky that I have that ability, And then he started into, yes, we're amicable, we're filing, jointly, and he sort of talked about it. And he said, and that's all I'm going to say to any media. So there you go. And so
end of story, done.
And he kind of started to walk away and he kind of turned and looked back at me and goes, is that okay? And I was like,
you're like, oh my gosh, thank you. Yes. I got to keep my job.
Thank you so much. So of course, I'm like calling the show. He talked about it. We got it. So I had to rush to a studio, satellite the footage to LA. Right. Within an hour, promos were everywhere. Billy Joel talks about,
and they were everywhere.
Exclusive, and so anyway.
Exclusive. Yeah. I think that's what he told you too. He turned around and said, that was exclusive, by the way. I'm not doing that anymore.
He even said it on camera, so that made it even better.
That's awesome. You know what's I find fascinating in terms of even being able to do interviews with people. Even in the interviews I've done, a lot of it's like we're doing now. It's conversation. And I think the best stories, especially if you have to tiptoe around, difficult topics, is just respect. I think you were respecting him and generally aligning your question with something that they want to know, but with something that's important to him. Like you said, how do you do it? Like I love asking those questions. Just like, what is it that you're doing? How are you able to do what you're doing given the situation? And I think that's a really respectful question. And it's, the white elephant in the room is, he knows you want to know about it. And also, that he knows, and it's like, he doesn't want to talk about it. So how do you tiptoe around that? And I think that's two cases you gave where you really did it by simply investing yourself in them as a person. It seems like.
Yeah. And that's the thing I learned about, like, celebrities are just people too. It's like you go out and, a lot of people are really intimidated by celebrities. And when you work with a show, like I worked with Access Hollywood for quite a few years, doing stories. I did stories for ET for many, many years. And it's like you learn that, it's like they're, you just respect them like you would want respected yourself, as far as questions and everything. And there are some hard questions, that come up from time to time in interviews. But, a lot of times I would almost let the publicist or let them know in advance. I would say, hey, the show wants to know about this. Do you want to talk about it? And they would at least have some, I wouldn't spring things on them or whatever,
Right.
Yeah, I always hate those off guard because it makes everyone uncomfortable. Even the audience that's watching, it's just like, you just feel cringe. Like you cringe. Yeah, it's like
exactly. So I think, and you're right, just conversational, is like with anybody, it's, I was lucky my mom talked a lot. I always said she would talk to the wall for a couple hours before she realized it wasn't going to talk back.
Before you guys woke up, she's like, I got to talk to somebody.
so anyway, I sort of learned that conversational stuff from her, and it helped, in the television business, because whether you're pitching an idea to a network, whether you're interviewing a celebrity or anybody in general, it just helps to have that conversational, I guess, ability to communicate well. And
that's what we do here on this show. And I have a background in news as well. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with people who have to have every single question laid out. And then my style it was always the conversational style as well. I'd have my questions in mind, but the interviews flow much better if it's just a conversation.
Yeah, I have the guideline. Like I've got the
Right.
paper there for a guide in case I have a brain fart and I'm like, I don't know,
Right.
what else can I ask? But generally it's that same thing. It's just a guide and it usually gets tossed in the middle of the interview.
I learned that even like doing like corporate videos for the past like 6-7 years, I've been in Silicon Valley in San Francisco Bay, working with some tech companies, and you talk about like difficulty like translating communication. It's like celebrities are a breeze.
Easy compared.
Right.
When you start talking to a tech person in Silicon Valley,
What is your secret?
What did you just say?
What is your secret for getting those people to forget about the camera and just engage in a conversation?
So one technique, and it's not really even a technique, but it works all the time usually, is you have the prepared questions that they've provided or that you know they want to talk about. And so you go through those and but you don't, get them, used to being on the camera. Sit down, don't make them look into the camera. Don't make them, just sort of make them comfortable, conversational. But, you cover the topics that are on the paper, and they always are really stiff and they do their answers. And it's like, and then, at some point you just get to the point where, we've got it. We have this, we have all the answers we need. But I want to ask you a couple of things again real quick. And then I just say, and then they're like relaxed. Like they're like,
that's a good idea.
Okay,
that's a great idea.
All right, good. I'm done. And then you just say, tell me about this again, because I love the way you explained it, and then they just start talking to you. And there's not as much pressure, it seems like, to like perform, I guess, or get the correct answer, and so it just seems that technique seems to work where, some people are naturally conversational. Some people have their answers so embedded in their head, or they're so
you got to try to yank it out of there.
Yeah. And media coaching is great, but media coaching also limits people's ability to communicate naturally, I think, if they're over, media coached. So
I think a lot of people think you need to be polished on camera. Like I'm a CEO, I'm the president, I need to be polished. And if it's like that thing, if it's too polished, it's just doesn't feel authentic. Right. And so a lot of that authenticity is just being able to break past. I always take their questions. I've done like this, and I've thrown like, what? Rip my questions. I was like, you already know what you need to say, right? Yeah, I know what I need to ask, right? Yeah, okay, let's just have a conversation. So literally their face like, relax, like you got to let that go. And so what do? In a conversation, when you're telling a story, you want a beginning, a middle, and an end, even when you're doing an interview. And so I know as an interviewer, you're always thinking like, what do I need to start off with? Where do I need to take the story? And then, that button, like I need a button on this that's a good conclusion to the end. Well, what kind of thing do you do when you're to find those buttons or those connector pieces? What are you looking for in an interview to find those connectors between ideas and then the conclusion? Like, how do you wrap up a good interview with a strong, like, boom button?
I think it's all listening. Like that's one of the, like I've worked with so many journalists over the years, and like, while the person would be answering the question, they're like not even looking at them. They're looking down at their piece of paper to see what their next question is. And then the person finishes the question with a perfect lead out, into a new question or line of questioning, and they don't follow up. And they just jump to the next thing. And so I've seen that happen so many times. And I think that's something young journalists sort of get lost with. They're so focused on getting those, specific things that they lose track of just conversational, tone.
And it's the real story.
Exactly. And so I think it's just listening and sort of knowing when you have something and when you don't, and a lot of that's preparation, knowing exactly what you need out of an interview or out of, whatever it is you're shooting. And then just listening and hearing it, and giving them a chance to wrap something up. I think that's always a great ending question is, there's so many people that want to hear from you, what you have to say, what do you want to say to your fans, to you, the people that love you, that watch your shows or whatever, what do you want to say to them, And that always sort of like wraps things up nicely because it allows them to sort of just, okay, this is cool. I get to address my people.
So much information, and we're already running out of time. It's 3 freckles past the hair. I forgot my watch today. Anyway, more with Greg Travis is going to be coming up next week on Entertainment Dudes, where we'll talk about, what do you think we'll talk about, Jason?
Well, I know for a fact we're actually going to be talking about telling stories, pitching stories, pitching ideas.
Pitching stories, yes.
Yes, how to come up with a different perspective on how you see stories, and a little bit of just more fun stories about the entertainment industry. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss it.
All right.
Entertainment Dudes.